guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am joined with my Pacman Frog Houdini, and we will be doing a Pacman Frog Care guide. He's going to be hanging out in his care keeper. I wanted to start this video off by saying that I am in no means an expert on the subject. I just do this as a hobby, and I am here to share what I do with my Pacman Frog and what's worked for me, and what I've learned. So definitely do your own research. Don't take this video as fact. I make mistakes. Definitely go to other sources. Now the Pacman Frog is very, very easy to care for. It's one of the very beginner frogs you can keep. They do get kind of big, but they're just kind of lazy. They like to lay just in their hole and wait for food to come to them. Now they do have teeth. So sometimes if you like wiggle your finger in front of them, they'll think it's a worm and they'll try clamping on. So I don't recommend this for a kid that might want to hold their pet. They don't do well with being held too often. Mine is very used to it, but I still don't like to hold him too much. Also, if you do decide to hold your Pacman Frog, or you have to take him out to clean the enclosure, or take him out to feed him like I do, definitely wear gloves, wet gloves. Your hands secrete oils that are toxic to frogs. So always wear your gloves. So it takes a Pacman Frog about 10 to 12 months to fully mature and to fully get to their size. Mine is not full grown, and females will get bigger than males. And they are a commitment. These guys in good conditions can live up to 15 years old. So they're easy, but they're definitely a commitment that you have to make sure you want these guys before you get them, just like any pet. So let's go ahead and start off with how you house a Pacman Frog. So at their full size, a male Pacman Frog will get about between 3 to 4 inches, and they can be housed no smaller than a 10-gallon. Right? Females will get 4 to 7 inches, and they should be housed in nothing smaller than a 20-gallon enclosure. So I keep mine in a 20-gallon right back there, and I just prefer it more. Houdini seems to like roaming a bit more, so I definitely recommend a 20 either way, but males can live in a 10-gallon. I see a lot of people do that. I just personally keep mine in a 20-gallon. Make sure you have a secure lid, because I've heard stories of them trying to jump out, and I would believe it. Mine's just a bit tall for him to be able to get up there, but definitely keep locked lids or secure lids in some way to ensure your frog won't get out. Alright, so real quick, let me also talk about cohab with a Pacman Frog. Don't. Never cohab a Pacman Frog. Even if they're the same size, they will cannibalize, and if they're about the same size, one of them will try to eat the other and will probably suffocate while trying to eat it, so then both your frogs die. Alright, so the substrate you want to put in your enclosure, a lot of people go to Eco-Earth. I currently use Eco-Earth. It's the little compressed blocks that you get that you have to rehydrate. You can also use organic topsoil. Make sure there's no fertilizers in it, because that can harm your frog. I am switching to organic topsoil as soon as I can, because I like it more. Your substrate should constantly be damp, not like soaked where you squeeze it and like a bunch of water comes out, but it needs to be damp, because that's how they cool off. There should also be enough substrate in your enclosure for the frog to completely bury themselves. They spend a lot of their time underground. They kind of go in at a backwards angle and get underneath that dirt, and most of the time when I have to find Houdini, he will be at the bottom of his tank. That's just, they like to be in the bottom, they like to be underneath the dirt, so make sure you have enough substrate for them to completely submerge. So as far as decor goes, a lot of people don't really even have anything in their tanks. I disagree with that. I think you should have stuff in there for them to explore or for them to feel safe. So I have a bunch of fake plants. I need to get some more. I also have a little cork kite in there for him. You should also have a water bowl. They should have access to water bowls. Now the water bowl should be big enough to where they can soak in, they can fit their whole body in, but it should not go above their chin, because they'll drown. So you want to make sure that the water is shallow enough, and the dish is shallow enough for them to get out, but the water is shallow enough to where it won't go above their chin. When you do use water for Pacman Frog in any way, whether it's their water bowl or misting them, because you do need to mist them every day or every other day depending on your climate, use a dechlorinator. So I use Reptisafe. There are other brands of dechlorinator out there. You can also use spring water. That'll work just fine. Because at least in the US we have chlorinated water, so it'll go through the frog's skin, because that's how they drink water, that's how they breathe. So they should always have access to dechlorinated water. So maintenance for your Pacman frog, just spot check it like you would any other amphibian or reptile. They'll poop one or two times a week, and if you see that, just scoop it up, throw it away. And just change the substrate out completely once a month. Just redo all of it, disinfect everything once a month. Alright, so let's move on to heating, lighting, and humidity. So for lighting, they don't need any special lighting. UVB won't hurt them. Eventually Houdini will have UVB light, just not right now. But they don't need it. As long as you have enough light in your room for a day and night cycle for them to know when it's daytime, when it's nighttime, you're good. The reason they don't need UVB is because they are nocturnal, so nothing to worry about with that. Now their heating, on the other hand, is important. You need about 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit in their enclosure, and you can do this with a heat mat or a ceramic heat emitter, or if your room is just that hot in general. Mine's not. It's hot in here, it's not that hot. So you can use a ceramic heat emitter. The problem with that, it'll dry out your enclosure way faster than a heat mat will. So I don't recommend it. You just have to really keep up on misting, really keep up on making sure that the frog is hydrated. The last thing you want is to dry out your frog. So you can also use a heat mat like I use, and just make sure it's put on the side of the tank, not the bottom, because the dirt should stay cool. And when I say 75 to 85 degrees, I mean the ambient, not the soil. The soil should remain cool, because that's how the frog cools down. They burrow into the soil to cool down from the heat. Humidity should be about 70 to like 88%, somewhere in that range. They need a good amount of humidity in their enclosure. So if you do have a screen lid and maybe you don't, there's not like enough humidity in the room. I don't have this problem. I have almost a full lid, and even then the humidity is really high in this room. But you can use some aluminum tape to just put on top of it, so that humidity has a harder time getting out and you can keep it in. Alright, so now on to feeding. So I have 3 categories for food, which is ideal, okay on an occasion, and never at all. Ever. So, ideal would be any kind of roaches like red runners or dubias. You can use captive bred hornworms, and you can use night crawlers. I use night crawlers and dubias for his staples. Now you can feed occasionally. You can feed certain fish like mollies or guppies. Never done it. This is just what I've heard. You can feed waxworms, but they're high in fat, so that should not be a staple. It can also be highly addictive to them. But they can be a good start for babies to get them to start eating. Pinkies. So sometimes if the frog is big enough, I would make sure they are big enough to handle it. But you can give them a pinky once in a while. You should not do that often. I have never done it. I probably won't ever do it. But you can. Mealworms and superworms. Those are things that a lot of people have as staples. The problem I have with those is they have a very hard exoskeleton that can be really hard for the Pacman frog to digest. So it's better if you don't. If you do it on occasion. So if you do feed mealworms or superworms too often, it can cause issues like impaction and an anal prolapse. You don't want those things to happen, of course. So I don't feed them. You can occasionally, just don't feed it too often, and make sure you think your frog can handle it. Now the never ever feed red wigglers. They are toxic to frogs. You should also never feed any kind of egg-laying fish, because it can cause a deficiency. I don't remember the deficiency right now, but I'll put the word up here. So you should feed 2 to 3 appropriately sized prey items every other day for babies, and then every other day to every 3 days as adults. Now for appropriate size, if you have like a roach, it should be about the size in between their eyes on the top of their head. Alright, so to feed them, I take mine out of the enclosure. Houdini had a lot of issues eating whenever he was younger. When I first got him, we actually had to force feed him for a while, which I'll probably do a video on that some other time. Oh no, he's pooping. Okay, frog poop is nasty. It smells so bad. But they only do it like 1 or 2 times a week, which is fine, I guess, but it's bad. Anyway, so I bring mine out in the enclosure he's in to feed him his worms. He doesn't, I've tried feeding him in his enclosure to try getting him to eat in there, seeing if he would do it. He's not interested, so I have to get him out into a critter keeper to feed him. Also, if you feed anything like roaches and you don't tongue feed like the earthworms, like I tongue feed my earthworms, if you don't do that or you're using roaches, do it in something else because they will burrow. Hey guys, I was editing and realized I forgot to mention calcium and vitamins. I dust my feeders every single feeding with Repashy Calcium Plus. You can use just regular calcium and D3 and alternate that with vitamins as long as they get vitamin A. But I use Repashy Calcium Plus, and I just realized I forgot to mention it. Alright, so that's all for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you are getting a Pacman Frog in the future, I hope that this helped you. I'm gonna go give him a worm and put him back home because he is very grumpy, and I gotta clean out that poop. So, don't forget to subscribe below. The links are in the description, and thanks for watching. Bye!